10 Brexit deal failures. Number 10. EU citizens. The UK could see a huge number of EU citizens choosing to live here, or UK citizens moving abroad before the end of the transition period. They would be allowed to work if they come before the end of the transition period and stay for 5 years, meaning either EU immigration might not fall as much as expected, or both EU migrants and UK citizens could abandon the country, leaving huge gaps in the job market. Either way, it seems unfair that unskilled workers from the EU can still carry on taking low-paid jobs if they get here before 2020, while skilled workers who want to move freely between the border post-Brexit will struggle post-2020. That doesn't even account for non-EU migration. Number 9. Finance will only get basic access to EU markets. The financial sector in the UK won't have passporting rights to be able to operate in the EU. The UK companies can only do business with the EU if the European Commission determines that the regulations and standards of the UK are close enough to the regulations and standards of the EU. If the EU Commission grants rights to operate, they can be revoked with 30 days' notice. There is no legal agreement on what those standards and regulations are, so the European Commission can essentially force the UK to adhere to standards it doesn't like. Number 8. EU research funding will stop. So universities in the UK currently receive funding for research from the EU. There are no provisions related to this in the deal. Number 7. Arbitration. Should the EU decide the UK has not complied with European Union law that we could agree to adhere to in this deal if it gets passed, and then the UK disagrees and thinks we have followed the rules, or we shouldn't have to follow the rules because we're no longer part of the EU, then the European Court of Justice, under this deal, will have a ruling over the disagreement. The European Court of Justice will have a binding jurisdiction over the UK. They could punish us for not following rules we didn't have a say in making. Number 6. The customs arrangement. As part of the Irish backstop, the UK has agreed to adhere to the European Union customs rules, meaning in order to trade goods and services freely across the Irish border, and indeed all borders of the UK, then the UK will have to follow those rules. But should we not like those rules, the UK won't be able to change them because we'd be outside the European Parliament. I would stress this only applies if the Irish backstop gets put in place. Number 5. We will only be able to end the transition period when an independent panel agrees we won't have a hard border in Northern Ireland. Up until the 31st of December 2099 is when the UK could potentially remain under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice and inside the customs union if no other solution to the Irish border, apart from the Irish backstop, can be reached. The EU wouldn't agree to the transition period, which we need to ease transition to businesses, unless the Irish backstop was in place. If future trade talks break down and we fall out with the EU, not getting a trade deal with the EU nations, then we will default to the Irish backstop. And before it goes on, we will only be able to leave the Irish backstop if an independent panel of UK and EU members agrees the solution to the Irish border has been reached. Elected UK politicians will not have a say in getting us out. Number 3. This probably won't pass Parliament. One of the reasons the DUP don't like the deal is because Northern Ireland will have to follow the single market rules, making them even more different to the rest of the UK. The Irish Sea will become a border for the single market, meaning there will be more checks than there currently is in goods travelling between Northern Ireland and mainland UK. Not to mention the £39 billion we will be paying for this deal. Number 2. We have to leave on March 2019. According to Article 50, the UK will have to leave the European Union on the 29th of March 2019 at 11 p.m, regardless of whether or not it has agreed a deal. The only way to stop this is to either potentially rescind Article 50 or extend Article 50, which takes the agreement of all EU member states. Number 1. The future trade relationship is not yet legally binding. The future trade relationship that comes at the end of the withdrawal agreement is not a legally binding document, meaning it could change completely. We won't be able to negotiate it until after March 29, 2019. Theresa May is essentially asking MPs to vote on a possibility that's not yet known, plus agreeing all the problems I just mentioned. But don't worry, some of this deal might get through. I have a video on the benefits of the deal coming up. Join in the debate below and subscribe.